everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill Season Ticket Holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Looks like we might be having some buffering issues. I don't know if that's election tampering, podcast tampering, what have you. We are here on election night, Chris.
Yeah, we are.
We're here on election night.
Did you catch any lyrics to that song?
You're such an idiot.
I wrote them down in case you place blame on another for the mess you've made. This is the way you mislead. We don't need another handout. They don't need another bailout. That song's written about Obama.
We're lagging, sir.
Well,
we're buffering.
It could be. I don't know what it is. I'll look into it.
Is it something you can fix? Guys, here's what we're doing. It's election eve. Obviously, everybody is, I like to see people pouring into the comments. Someone said the intro is longer than the early voting line, which is hilarious. We are here on election eve because rather than doom scrolling into social media about the future of the United States, I'd rather talk about something that brings me joy, like the Buffalo Bills. Chris, I feel like we are not alone in this, right?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, here we are. I want to drink to you, Chris. If we want to first hit everybody off, I want you to hold it up to the camera. Let's see if the people can see it.
Hold on.
Oh, it's buffering badly. I can see it.
There you go. Knob Creek 12 in my hand.
And what are you drinking it out of? A Glencairn that's what?
This Glencairn. I don't know if you can see that emblem on there. It's from the White House.
A White House Glencairn. Thank you, Jake. Guys, we're here on election eve, and obviously we have a lot of nuanced coverage to bring you. Obviously not about the election or anything to do with the future of our country. Although, Chris, we do have an early map we'd like to show everybody. For those of you who showed up here but also have an interest in such things, we have an early voting map. I want you all to take a good look at it. No, this is not meant to describe who's voting Republican or who's voting Democrat. This is instead intended to outline the number of people who prefer usage of the terms pop, soda, and Coke. And I want you to see that there's a clear line of delineation. There's some clear partisan behavior happening here. Chris, what is wrong with you Coke people in the South?
I don't get it. Well, Coke is based... Sorry, we're also eating jerky. Coke is based in Atlanta. So there is a Coke museum in Atlanta. So everybody in Atlanta, can I get a Coke? Could be Sprite. We don't know.
Guys, we are here. I'm looking at this now. We only have 3 current viewers because the buffering's so bad. It is a mess right now. As is the presidential election and all of the nonsense going on. Hence why we're doing it this evening. A little catharsis for you as we kind of watch this all play out. Guys, we are here with our Week 9 recap, the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Now, Chris, before we go any farther, is there anything we can do about the connection issue now, or do we have to reload the entire thing?
You'd have to reload the entire thing, and as you can see, YouTube RTMP streaming medium.
That's
what it's
awesome.
Been on since we fixed this issue.
I like Eric Griffin. My cousin from Niagara Falls says pop. Here we say pop.
It's the correct way.
There's a whole bunch of people that say soda, and I don't understand where they source these results. Again, I think this poll, like many of those that we've seen in the past weeks, has been cooked. And for those of you who haven't, Chris, hopefully those of you watching have gone out and voted. Because in the words of Chris Farley.
So I guess you guys should vote, because voting kicks ass, right?
There you go.
So with that, you know what else kicks ass? The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills in Week 9 of the NFL season did, in fact, kick ass, Chris. And we are here with our recap. The Buffalo Bills 30, the Miami Dolphins 27. I have your stats of the evening if you're interested in some. I want to start with Tyler Bass. He's now hit 3 missed point after attempts, which is a new single season high and we're only in Week 9.
Our cash is going up, so...
yeah, it's all falling apart.
Your only option would be to bag out of it and start over.
Do you want to try?
We can.
It's up to you.
You're the host. I can only pull so many strings back here.
Hey, guys, give us 30 seconds. We're going to relaunch this thing, and we'll be right back. For those of you in the comments, we love you. We'll be right back. And we're back. We're back, and we're streaming. They tried to take us down, but they couldn't. Guys, obviously, they would try to censor me. I'm too powerful in a suit. For those of you who don't know, this is our election night recap of the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills. And I feel like it's worth noting that there's a Bill Burr bit about what it's like to be wearing a suit and some of the proclivities that hit you when you put a suit on. And I got to say that I'm not immune to it, Chris, because even just sitting here with the Glencairn in my hand full of what do I have here? I've got the Crossroads, right? The Crossroads. You
got Blue Note Crossroads?
Blue Note Crossroads. And as I have it here in my hand, I can't help but think, like, the longer I wear this suit and tie, the stronger the urge becomes to do something terrible. Like, I don't know. I feel like I should be drinking whiskey, and I also feel like I should be scheming. Scheming to do something, don't really know what. It's fun to think about what the world could be, right? Like, here we have the election night. There's all kinds of stuff happening, and the Buffalo Bills are 7-2. Chris, did you think we would be here having this conversation dressed as stupidly as we are right now?
I mean, I don't look stupid, that's for damn sure.
Why don't you show everybody?
Yeah, I am on camera here. Let me try and chain up here. I don't know how good this is going to be in a suit.
Well, while you struggle to put that on, I
got one.
I want people to watch you do this while I run through some of the stats of the game, right? Tyler Bass, as I mentioned before, his 3 missed PATs is his new single season high. Quarterback Kyer Elam, 2 solo run stops, 58 yards allowed in coverage. Those 2 solo run stops are important because as a defensive back in the system, you have to be able to tackle. It's one of the things that we loved about Rasul Douglas. Well, Kyer Elam's been doing it in spades. Miami running backs, 149 yards rushing and 1 touchdown in the game. 21 rushes on first down. I want to repeat that one again slowly for the people in the back. 21 rushes on first down, 90 yards, and 1 touchdown on 10 targets. 100% catch percentage. Who tied Drew's tie? Honestly, Mark, Chris did. Because I can't tie a full Windsor. In fact, that's another one of your stats of the game. People it took to successfully tie a tie for Drew Gear, I believe in the 4-in-hand knot. If it was good enough for President Obama, why isn't it good enough for some hecklers in the YouTube comments? I fail to see a problem here. According to Chris, though, the only proper way to go about this...
Full Windsor's the only way to go.
Full Windsor's the only way if you're an adult stepping out into public. Wide receiver Hill and wide receiver Jalen Waddle, 2 combined first half targets against the Buffalo Bills. When you really get into what this game was, first of all, I know this is going to drive everybody. I thought it was a clip. Screw you guys. I'm tacky, right? I'm from North Collins, but I still know how to tie a real tie. Give me some credit. First of all, a giant shout out to everybody who showed up to the tailgate. It was one of our most successful the entire season, and I know how much you guys love tailgate talk. Everybody who came, I mean, guys, if you don't show up, right? If you don't show up to our tailgate, here's what you're missing out on. We had a guy across the way, Berger, and all of his friends from Rochester shucking oysters from an oyster farm that the one guy owns. So on a Sunday morning, you have the ability to get ribeye steaks and salmon on crostini from our tailgate. You can wander across the alleyway and get fresh shucked oysters. You can't eat like this in some what they call 4-star restaurants, and yet you can do it in a parking lot outside of a Buffalo Bills game. You're welcome. Burger, shout out. We love you.
I look like...
You look like Mr. T had to go to court.
I look like I should be telling you about tonight's special, the veal scallopini.
The veal scallopini. You sound... No, what you sound like is what you look like is the maitre d' at an Italian restaurant. I can see you kicking open the back door and going, "Hey, push the scungili. It's about to turn." Guys, We look ridiculous. But how else are you supposed to dress on the night of the election of a president? You know, we are analysts after all, correct?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. When you look at what happened in this football game, it's incredible because both teams did the thing that nobody historically has thought them capable of doing. They both played uncharacteristically composed offense. Trench warfare by both teams offensively compared to what we've known each team for. I mean, it was awesome to see, and also the only reason that this game stayed a game. You know, I talked about it in our preview show with Elf, that I didn't believe that Mike McDaniel would have the fortitude to just make a clear and concise effort to run the game through his stable of running backs. And yet he did. And it's the reason that the game remained close. Fab 13, I'm so high I thought Chris's recommendation was a promo. Awesome. Guys, I look at this. The most effective players on the Miami Dolphins football team was the running backs. They came out with a plan of how to use them. They leaned into what was a weakness of the Bills' defense. The first time around, Chris, the reason we throttled them the way that we did is because they steered into trying to orchestrate a downfield passing attack against a team that was ready for them in that capacity. This time around, they at least, I mean, it wasn't great, but Chris, they scored 27 points.
Yeah, they did.
Worlds better than what they accomplished in the last go-around.
This is like the first time that they stuck to the run.
And that's the thing. I think we've, in all of Tua's appearances here in Buffalo, we've gotten used to watching him implode down the stretch. You know, if you think back to the December game where Josh Allen turned into Superman, had that giant 40-yard run and then the 2-point conversion, the reason that fell apart is because Tua stopped making the passes that he used to make. And everything else fell apart. And they literally, in that game, Raheem Mostert had over 100 yards rushing in the first half, and they refused to run the ball in the second half. And it's the reason the whole thing fell apart, because they put the game into his hands, and he imploded. This go-around, it couldn't have been more different for the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa orchestrated the best drive of his entire career. 97 yards. And not just 97 yards where it's like, oh yeah, I was at the goal line, or we were caught in our own end, and you know, we kind of got hemmed in, and then we caught a lucky break and Tyreek Hill caught a seam pass and just took everyone to the house. It was a 14-play, 8.5-minute, 97-yard touchdown drive for the Miami Dolphins. Just like at the beginning of the second half. Like that, or no, actually it was in the second quarter. When we had them on the doorstep and thought they were backed up because they trusted their running backs. Look at that statistic. They ran the ball on first down, Chris, 21 times. That's highly improbable for a coach that has long maligned the running back stable as like a focal point of the game. Not only that, but then when you look at what they were able to accomplish through the air, right? The Bills played an incredible percentage of light boxes, which also helped contribute to that unit's success. So it's excellent coaching. I want to give Mike McDaniel his round of applause because he fucking earned it. Mostert saw 0 8-man or more boxes, and Ashane only saw 16. A-Shane, whatever you want to call him. There's something that feels dirty, guys, about drinking a Utica Club in a suit. It's like I'm at a wedding in somebody's backyard.
A real good wedding in someone's backyard.
I also saw a lot of lamenting about the performance of our defensive line. A lot of tweets about, oh, everyone needs to step it up. And I understand that. But also, the Dolphins' ability to execute with their backs was like a pressure release valve for a Miami Dolphins that's never had one against Buffalo. It's usually Tua stands back there, either finds somebody shallow who tries to get yards after the catch, or he gets drilled in the backfield or forced to throw a bad off-time pass. This time, the timing was perfect because they went in with a game plan. We're going to hit him. We're going to hit him again and again and again with these running backs. I think that they're a team that if they can orchestrate that game plan the way they did against us, there's a lot of football games for them to be won because, Chris, not everybody has Josh Allen. Now, well, our defensive line and linebacker play did kind of contribute to the Miami success. We saw a huge day for our younger defensive backs. Cam Lewis came in, made a couple plays, got his name called. How about Kaiir Elam? Kaiir Elam steps into this football game in replace of the injured Christian Benford. And he shows you what he is. And he shows you his growth in this game. And I think it was incredible. I think it was not just incredible. I think it was really important for his development to have this game. Because in years past, when you've asked Kaiir Elam to come in off the bench, everyone will remember the Jacksonville game where he came in and was a glaring liability in coverage. And they knew it. And they picked on him so badly, we had to sub him out and put Ingram in. In this game, from start to finish, he saw a very limited number of targets when you really get into it. If I look at it here, coverage versus matchups, and I take a look at how Kaiir Elam fared. He gave up 54 yards and he gave up 4 catches. Do you know how many yards after the catch he gave up, Chris?
I have no idea.
17, and 11 of them came on a running back who got cleaned up by our safeties anyway. 3 first downs, which on its face isn't great. But then you think about that. For the amount of throwing they did and everything that was in the box, nobody got one over on him. Tyreek Hill got a single pass, a single completion against him for meaningful yardage. And that was everybody's production for the entire day. 28 of his 54 yards came on one pass to Tyreek Hill. He gave up no yards after the catch. So it showed you he was at least battling and he was at least fighting for balls in the air, keeping stride with one of the fastest wide receivers in football. And then it's the tackling. And it's everything else that he brought to the table in just run defense and how he graded everywhere else that was so impressive. I look at him as one of the reasons that this team is going to be productive, highly productive. And it's, Chris, if you can get that off the screen real quick so I can see the comments. This team is going to be able to be highly productive because not only are their starting corners reliable, but for everybody who is part of the trade Kaiir Elam group. Oh, we don't need Kaiir Elam. I myself once called it hat on a hat. How thankful are you, Chris, that in a game like this, you had a DB who not only could cover Tyreek Hill, cover Jalen Waddle when asked, but also has no problem crashing the box and playing the run with efficiency?
I thought he played well for coming in. Starting in relief over Benford. I mean, I feel like cornerbacks, you can never have enough corners. No. And you have a former first-round pick just riding pine, waiting for an injury to happen to get in, and he played well. Why I have more chains on. 8 chains.
They called it the erection special because Chris is going to have a hard time keeping the stream up. Oh my God, how did that comment not get more love? We do need Blue Chew as a sponsor. Listen, I'll take their money.
Yeah. If anybody knows anyone at Blue Chew.
They've emailed us. They've actually emailed us multiple times, but I'm not a shill, so I refuse to take their...
I am.
Same thing with Manscaped. Listen, use a Mach 3 or go home. Use a 3-blade razor or go home. I'm just saying, I'm a purist. So, in that way, though, really, really impressed with Kaiir Elam. And I hope that some of the noise about Kaiir Elam's presence on this roster is going to it's going to quiet down now. When you do, just like after the election, all of these ham-fisted political ads into all the TV I feel like watching, it's all going to quiet down. Everyone's going to go away and find new things to be pissed off about. Kaiir Elam's not going to be one of them. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from it.
You gotta fight for your right to vote.
If you guys can't tell, Chris has been watching Black Sheep. Chris,
you got to fire in some Black Sheep in this.
Chris has been watching Black Sheep way too much. Also, for some of you might notice, you want to joke about my long arms? Look at how far, if I stick my arms out, my arms stick out of the sleeves of my coat. They literally tried to get this thing as a custom fit, and they couldn't. My arms are too long for any jacket. It doesn't matter what it is.
So if you want to know and I know you do. This is a custom suit from Napoli's in Williamsville. It's about $2,000, and I paid cash for it.
Yeah, you must have paid.
Mostly tens.
You must have paid with our podcast's cash because clearly we are broke. The thing is buffering. Chris?
The one thing I didn't put in is I do have, I have them upstairs, but I have, what are those, cufflinks?
Yeah.
And they are made from NHL puck. So suck on that.
We might be the dumbest people on earth. We're sitting here in suits on election night talking about Bills football, drinking out of Glen
Yeah, but
Cairns.
you do no research.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that in a little bit, guys. So the other thing, if you want to talk about the defensive backs really setting the tone for this game, because our linebackers and our defensive line did not have a strong game. You can't say enough about Teron Johnson. During the early portion of the season, we go back to some of these games like the game against Houston, and you're like, oh man, if we had a Teron Johnson, we win this game. You go back to the games, the Ravens game. I don't know that he makes a huge difference, but his ability to tackle in space would have changed what they were allowed to get away with in terms of rushing attack. And then when they did play action and, running backs out of the backfield, you would have had a much savvier nickel back out there who could have sniffed those things out. So it's funny in a game where our defense really struggled and their offense played almost a perfect game. I think two only had two incompletions the entire day, and one of them was just a punch out. It wasn't even a true incompletion. It was a great play by the defender. The play of the day on defense had to be Teron Johnson's forced fumble because that's how they teach it. It's why Sean McDermott has brought Peanut Tillman himself into training camp every year to teach these guys the peanut punch, and they've worked on it their entire careers. Trying to separate running backs and guys after the catch, after the carry from the football. And those are the plays that go on to change games. Now, in a vacuum, it happens so early in the second half. You go, okay, great play. We're going to go down. We're going to score. What nobody realizes is that the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are about to go on drives for the rest of the game, trading scores. Neither team played defense in that second half. And I think that that's incredible that it's like that one play, that small advantage that you got with that forced fumble, and then you go down the field and score. Chris, that's your margin in the game.
I do like that you brought up Peanut Tillman. You know where he is tonight, right?
Where? Is he at Mar-a-Lago?
He's probably getting ready to protect Trump because if for those that didn't know, he did 1 year at Fox and then became like a CIA agent.
What?
Did you not know that?
No.
I'll pull it up.
Peanut Tillman was a CIA. He's become a CIA agent after working at Fox News.
He has a high-ranking job in the government.
Yeah, his job is to make sure that whoever's in office doesn't fumble the football.
Yeah, he does FBI.
Do you think he's in the White House waiting to punch out the football from the president if he goes rogue?
Probably.
I'd pay him a lot of money just to stay in the White House and wait for it.
I mean, if you try to punch out the current president, he might die.
You're an idiot. On the other side of the ball, I just got done singing all of Mike McDaniel's praises. There's something here about our offensive approach, but timing and feel and timeliness of our offensive attack, it's one of the more incredible dynamics of the Bills' winning streak here recently. Okay, first of all, Bills' offensive line, only 3 pressures allowed. So they were really good in pass protection. And Spencer Brown himself had a really incredible game. And if you go back and rewatch it, there's a couple remember when I said last week he played nasty football? Nasty, like all the jokes that Donald Trump has made at everybody in the Republican Party's expense. Nasty. Spencer Brown was out there dog walking some of their offensive line. And then if they let him get to the second level on some of our running plays, he's just being mean. The run is away. Like the run is off left guard. But Spencer Brown is still at the second level, just grabbing a linebacker and hurling him to the turf for no reason other than he's Spencer Brown and this is what he gets paid to do. And he loves it. He loves it. After what was a slow start for another week, the Bills offense had no choice but to be perfect in the second half just to keep up with the game flow. And they answered with 3 touchdown drives and a game-winning field goal in their last 4 possessions. And some of the numbers behind this are incredible, right? It was incredible patience by Josh Allen. No plays forced into coverage downfield. Every team that comes out in a too high safety look, which is, it almost sounds like it's a cop-out now to say it. Like, oh, too high safety look. What does that mean? When they played zone shells to try to limit us from being able to throw the ball down the field, we just took what they had to offer. And the results were incredible because a season-high 80% of Josh Allen's yardage came after the catch in this game. His average depth of target is crazy because only one player had an average depth of target in double digits. And then there was at least 8 players with at least one catch. Shakir had another eye-poppingly efficient game. Look at 7 targets, which led all wide receivers, 4 missed tackles forced, which led all wide receivers, 4 first downs, which led the entire team. And there's something else when you look into the efficiency metrics of this, right? We've spent years demanding that Josh Allen stop playing hero ball and that he stop making mistakes on high variance, throwing into double coverage plays, or that he takes gambles because he feels like he has to. I think what it took to get him to this point was getting him the offensive coordinator and the right skill position players around him so that could help carry the load. This was a year where the Bills have maybe the worst skill position group, quote unquote, as that they've had in his time here in Buffalo. Is that fair? His time as a starter short of 2018, this is the worst, quote unquote, wide receiver core.
That makes sense.
I'm looking at, but I backed the stream up about 30 secs. There we go.
Yeah.
See? Finding solutions, guys. That's what the 2024 election is all about. Let's find solutions to our problems.
I'm going to prove you won the election.
Mike, put the gun down. There's other ways to handle this.
No, man, hell, there's no other way.
Finding solutions, people. That's what the 2024 election is all about. I want to walk you through some of this. We scored 30 points in a game where we did not have a robust downfield passing attack. Ray Davis, yards after the catch and yards after contact, he used that to generate one of the most explosive plays of the day on a play when all it took was him being lower than the defenseman who was supposed to tackle him. Chris, first of all, how mad are you that Ray Davis's touchdown came like minutes after I was like, guys, they got to give us more Ray Davis?
Yeah, it's like another thing. Drew correct in what the Bills need to do on offense. Since halftime, you'd been clamoring for more Ray Davis, and then they give it to him, and
it's just a house call.
House call. Oh, you had one person that you had to make miss. Fucking stupid.
And why do you think that is? He had one person to miss because the misdirection on the play pulled all of the linebackers in it held him for a minute. When Ray Davis hits the edge of the defense, there's nobody there except for Marcus May, the safety. But because he's committed to shading the sideline, because they, like us, aren't willing to give up the big pass, all Marcus May can do is reach out with an arm and give a feeble tackle attempt to a running back who isn't fast but has such a low center of gravity and good contact balance that he blows right through it and there's no catching him. He's gone. He didn't even slow him down. And then Shakir, and this kind of highlights the point. Khalil Shakir might be the perfect player for the offense the Buffalo Bills have this year. Josh's trust in him, and just with his absurd catch percentage. And I think that goes hand in hand. His uptick in usage, Josh trusting that no matter where I throw to him, no matter how hard I throw it, he's going to catch this. All of a sudden, we have a dangerous short area passing attack. If you look at Khalil Shakir's numbers, just this season alone in a vacuum, his average depth of target weeks 1 through 4, 5.5 yards, and he racked up 230 yards on those catches. The last 3 weeks, Khalil Shakir's average depth of target has dropped to 1.4 yards. He has 222 yards in one fewer game. They're realizing very quickly, no one can tackle Khalil Shakir at first brush. And at the same time, he has the most effective hands in the NFL.
You remember what I called him?
What?
Hines Ward.
Hines Ward.
He's Hines Ward. You can't get him down first time. You'll just knock him back half a yard. You're going to need more people to take him down.
This isn't just a Josh Allen appreciation post for realizing that Khalil Shakir is talented. It's an understanding that it took these guys, these players, it took James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, and an offensive coordinator like Joe Brady to get him to finally buy into the concept that you don't have to force success. You don't have to be Superman. You can find it together if you just follow the offensive coordinator's lead, execute your piece, and let the other 10 guys execute theirs. That statistic, that glaring disparity. Khalil Shakir's average depth of target dropped 4 yards, and yet he's churning out the same yardage in production. That tells you he's not only being utilized properly, the play calls are being called in to use him in the right situations when you see you have the defense lined up and baited into a different call or a different look. And at the same time, it's working because your quarterback trusts it. He's no longer calling line checks because he sees, well, Coleman might be open 20 yards downfield. He's in double coverage, but fuck it. He's not making that mistake anymore. Instead, he now trusts Khalil Shakir's not going to screw me and drop this ball on a screen pass. In that way, I can trust him to do it. And he executes. Not just him. Mac Hollins and Quentin Morris in this game, Chris. I'm in the red zone inside the 5-yard line. I need a touchdown. Obviously, my first go is Quentin Morris, right? Mm-hmm. Why not? Everyone drafted Dalton Kincaid in fantasy football. Literally the only reason you extended Dawson Knox was because of his red zone success. But sure, what the fuck? Quentin Morris. Touchdown. Mac Hollins. Touchdown. Why not? Because we found guys who each fit a niche. They have a role. Oh, if you got a running back screen, Chris, we've got a guy with a ton of speed. I know we should probably roll James Cook out for this play. You know why the Miami Dolphins didn't expect a running back screen pass? Because Ray Davis is not the fastest running back on your football team. Why would you do that? And yet, look at the way he executed in the moment. And I guess that's the scariest part if you're an AFC foe who's watching that game and you go, man, the Bills only won by 3. They're not that scary. In the years past, it took Stephon Diggs putting double moves on defensive backs. And he'd be juking cornerbacks out in the open field in order to generate all of his production. It took Gabe Davis winning with his size up the seam and down, around and kind of capitalizing on broken plays like in that Rams game when Jalen Ramsey fell down.
Yeah.
And then just Josh using his legs and bench pressing Miami linebackers. And that's what produced all of our splash plays. Now, we're still getting highly effective plays. We're still scoring touchdowns. We're still generating chunk yardage. And it's not being done with downfield passing. It's not being done where we're trying to call play action and throw 50-50 balls down the field to a big rookie wide receiver. Instead, it's highly efficient small ball being operated underneath 2 high safety looks that every defensive coordinator wants to give us. That's probably one of the reasons that we are now a top 5 red zone offense for touchdowns. Not just for field goals, but for touchdowns. It's because the team spends whole quarters having to make small plays here and there inside of a 10-yard window. So now when you have to do it inside near the end zone, it's no longer square peg in a round hole, but something that they're a well-oiled machine at. And I love every bit of that. Now, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator, the only way you're ever going to be able to force Josh into making a turnover-worthy play and derail this offense that we've put together is going to be to drop guys down into the box and hope your pass rush really is as good as you think it is. Kind of like what the Ravens did to us in our week 5, Chris? Week 4?
Something like that.
In our week 4 game. While trusting that everybody on the back end can now hold up in man coverage against Kincaid, Coleman, Amari Cooper, I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem for everybody in the AFC. If the Bills can make that pivot, continue to prove over the back half of the season that this isn't just a fluke and that some adjustments by defensive coordinators, you're ready to pivot when teams try to go out of a too high shell and come after you. This offense might be capable of hitting a better gear, one that we've never seen before. Just like we've never seen a female president. This Bills offense might be able to become the first female to ever hold offense. That's what a unicorn this would be. Josh Allen not having to hurl the ball all over the field and still scoring 20, 30 points a game. Now, as I kind of go back over here, I want to take a look at something. They're understanding, like, when you think about average depth of target for the offense.
All of a sudden, we've got an excellent connection now.
We have an excellent connection, guys, because we had podcast interference. Podcast interference. I want a full-scale investigation. I demand a recount.
And we're proud to have him as a voter.
Hold your tongue, Winch. The fact is, Winston Savage was killed in the Argonne Forest in 1918. A Zeppelin landed on his head, smashing his head clean out of his ass.
Fraud! This has been a fraudulent stream. I feel like I've been robbed, I've been bamboozled, and I want a full-scale investigation.
It also still says our cache is full.
Yeah, well.
Yet we have an excellent connection.
Who knows? There's no way to know. The YouTube, I think YouTube just doesn't like us, but that's okay.
Possible. Or at least YouTube knows what I did at the polls this morning.
I want to show you guys something. Average depth of target by by most targeted players over the last 3 games. In Tennessee, Kincaid, Coleman, and Cooper all had more than 12.3 yards per target. In Seattle, Coleman, more than 12 yards. Shakir and Cooper, less than 3 yards per target on 11 targets. In Miami, there was no player with a catch of more than 7.5 yards downfield. That variance has led to some of the most productive second halves of football the Bills have ever put out. 24, 17, and 27. We are averaging 22.5 points per game in the second quarter. This is crazy. That shouldn't happen. That's more than some teams score in an entire game. And in games like this one against Miami, if you don't go out on offense and provide perfection, then you're probably a loser. You probably lose a game to the Miami Dolphins and give them fresh life. No one in the NFL has been hotter in the second half of their football games than the Buffalo Bills. And if you look at the fine metrics and then the faces, all the people that they're getting involved on their roster, it's clear Brady is getting over that lull that saw him fall into us falling 1-2 versus Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets. And once he sees now in the first half how you're trying to defend him, he pivots, right? He pivots and adjusts his approach to devastating effect by rolling in our running backs and Khalil Shakir in short yardage. And there's nothing. It's almost like he sees how you want to defend us deep, uses them as eye candy, and then just sets you up for him sweeping the leg with our running backs and Khalil Shakir in the passing game. They now lead the NFL in point differential by a really significant margin. I mean, at 87 points, we're 31 points ahead of Kansas City in terms of point differential. And it's easy to see why when you look at the numbers and the way that they've been piling them up. This offense has found something that even with a limited skill set is sustainable. And they did it in a game where they didn't have Amari Cooper. Some people looked at that game and said the Tennessee game, and they go, well, you got Cooper, and that's what did it. And then Cooper didn't really play against the Seattle Seahawks. And everyone's like, oh, well, Cooper, his presence did things. What's your excuse now? What excuse are you going to use when our team comes into your building and steamrolls you on offense? Because now you've seen us do it. You've seen us be almost perfect offensively. And we didn't have an Amari Cooper. And we had an injured Keon Coleman. And we had a lot of things going on that just might not have gone our way otherwise. I think it's incredible. And I almost nominated Joe Brady for Hero of the Week. Almost. But this week, for the Hero and Zero, the hero of the game has to be Bills kicker Tyler Bass.
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
It's time to really get into this. And guys, this might even be some of the crux of tonight's show because I've got charts. I've got some things I want to say.
Please tell me you're grabbing a Narragansett.
No, what I'm grabbing is actually, so Scott showed up at the tailgate. Scott, thank you very much. He brought me one of the best Fairy Nectar. It's a Nebraska IPA that, what? Oh, and Scott.
Yeah, the whole bag.
These giant bags of jerky that you brought us. It's incredible. I've just been quietly eating them every time I'm not on camera. It's
so good.
Another person who shows up to the tailgate and just, like, I hope you had fun because you, just by being there and being a part of this, make the experience better for myself and for everybody else.
I like, Scott and I have similar personalities. I think I had done a lap, like, around to, like, Hammer's Lot, and I think it went over to the Mafia House, and I came back, and Scott was at the tailgate, and I immediately walked up to him, and I shook his hand. Thanks for coming. Did you bring me a deer?
Did you bring me?
Yeah.
I love Scott.
He brought 3 bags. I mean,
Chris is starting to look like 3-6 Mafia with all these wins, and I want to see him sing Act a Fool. Steve, the fact that you know that. I love you. I love Steve. He's an OG.
I don't know what Act a Fool is.
Of course you don't, because you're Chris, because you grew up middle class, right?
Yeah.
What do you know about 3-6 Mafia?
Here's the thing, Drew. I grew up in a middle-class family. Both my parents were white and married to each other, and I went to a private high school. I don't know these active fools things that you speak of. They make 0 sense to me.
There's another life where Chris actually grows up to be Ashley Schaefer from Eastbound and Down. Like, there's a whole nother universe where that's the case. But
I feel like I could be one of his latchkeys dressed like this.
One of his latchkeys?
Yeah. At the Kia. Kia is a very fine automobile.
They make a fine Korean automobile. Yeah. So, with that in mind, Tyler Bass is the hero of the game. And here's what I want to start this by saying. Tyler Bass has not had a good season, which we'll expand on in a few minutes. But I need to talk about the difference between statistics and vibes and maybe just one of the best redemption stories the Bills have to offer. Tyler Bass's struggles started in the offseason when and I think our fan base's kind of refusal to accept his struggles started when in the preseason he was missing field goals in training camp, and someone, I think it was Sal Capaccio, tweeted about his struggles. And it was 185 comments of everybody who would ever call a WGR Weiner line about how terrible Tyler Bass is.
That would be you?
No, I'm not. Hey, I'm not a Tyler Bass insulter. At least I didn't get there at the start of the season.
I meant you calling radio stations because that was a past life before we got here. When I gave you your own microphone to yell in, you no longer had to call into WGR.
This is
fair.
You
just came to this platform.
Hey, Chris.
I have my own platform.
Chris, thank you for giving me a platform to scream into. So, with that in mind, Tyler Bass has not had a great start to the season. He's been unreliable. He's almost cost us in some key moments. And even in this game, he missed a point after attempt, which he now set a career high. And
I called that.
You did call it.
I called that missed kick. I turned to Dan, who sits next to, he has season tickets next to us, and I said, everybody was still high-fiving from the touch, and I'm like, hold up, he could miss this. There we go.
So everybody's kind of acceptance of this is, well, they made the 2-point conversion later, so it's okay. You don't want to live in a world of, hey, we had to paper over for our kicker. But for as much negativity as I had towards Tyler Bass on Sunday, when they show you the post game and it's Tyler Bass, an emotional Tyler Bass, and he takes that football and he gets choked up trying to explain to his teammates what that means to him. Like, I don't discount any of that. I know what it is to fail. I know what it is to be bad at the thing you set out to be great at.
You are a failure.
I'm a failure. What are you talking about? Look at this. First of all, I own not 1, but 4 pinstripe suits. I own 4 just with pinstripes. Okay. Would a failure own 4 pinstripes?
I mean, you probably got them at Walmart.
At least I don't drive a Mazda. With that said, Tyler Bass, it's human. When you see Tyler Bass in that moment after the game, when he's choked up and emotional about missing that field goal, you get to feel what it is. Like, we're all taken back to a time in our lives when we failed. And when we failed, and then we came through huge for everyone in a killer moment. And everyone rallied around us. It's human to want that for everybody. And to see him get it in one of the more improbable situations ever, a franchise record kick. Like, Chris, when he lined up for it, I didn't think he would make it. You know that. You were watching it with me, and I was almost dismissive. I go, all right, here comes overtime.
Yeah, we were watching this. At this point, we were back at your house.
Yep.
Sorry, people. We don't want to sit in our parking lot for an hour and a half.
Also, one of us might have sciatica.
And we're both over 40. We will beat the traffic 10 out of 10.
I live 10 minutes from the stadium. Why wouldn't I do that?
You know what we should do? Here's a fun thing. We stay to the end of the game. You go in your truck. You go back to the truck, and then you drive home. And then I walk to your house.
Yeah, you might beat me.
We see who wins.
You might beat me if you walked home to my house in traffic and made me drive in like actual game release traffic. You'd probably beat me home. I digress. Tyler Bass, in that moment, it was perfect. He set a franchise record. And now the question is, can he earn something back? Because we all know the yips. We all know that the yips are bad and that it's a highly mental thing that affects kickers. It happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's his mechanics. It's the way he's striking the ball, but that's completely up to him. And he only gets a handful of cracks at this a game. And so there's a very limited space for him to even have an attempt at trying to do it right. And so in that way, when you're talking about Tyler Bass and his struggles, I feel for him to a certain degree. Now on game day, when he's missing kicks, I feel a lot. I don't feel nearly as bad. And so I tweet some really hyperbolic things because that's how I feel in the moment. And I'm sure that's how Tyler Bass feels in the moment. And so it's nice to see him get that kick at the end and to have that moment with his teammates. That's probably like a salve for some of the wounds that he's felt over the course of this season. The real question is, can he turn this into future success? I think the success of the Bills long-term this season is going to depend on it. I hope he can find his form. Because if not, then he's going to be subject to a lot more hate from this week's Zero of the Week. And that's yours truly, Drew Gear.
You look like death warmed over. Every time I look at you, I lose my fucking appetite.
I am not ashamed to admit that I tweeted out. Chris, do you happen to have the tweet?
No, I don't.
Did you DM it to Freezing Cold Takes, or did you just tag them in it?
No, I quote tweeted it, and I said, "Hey, check this out."
So here's where I want to make sure I nail my tweet that made the entire fan base fucking angry, right? I want to make sure.
Well, you also did have Sunday night was this is a benefit of having sharing a Twitter account with somebody, because I was entertained by the DMs that you shared with Aaron Quinn and Greg Thompson of Cover One.
We fought for 3.5 hours about this.
That made my night.
Me and Greg fought to the death over this concept. And then we woke up in the morning and had to do the like if you've ever had a drunken fight with your spouse, I'm sure none of you have because you're all decent people. You turn around, you wake up in the morning and you look at your wife and go, sorry, I had a little bit to drink and maybe I said some things. And they look at you and they go, yeah, I might have let my temper get the best of me. And you just agree to disagree. And you go, listen, here's the context that I couldn't deliver in the moment. Here's what I said in my tweet that set the world on fire. At this point, the Bills can't afford to keep putting the game in the hands of Tyler Bass. He's broken. IDGAF, who's mad about my lack of support, he shouldn't need an open letter from Bills Mafia to realize he needs to do his job. And that was the tweet that I hit send on that sent for Chris as a joke.
Hold on. Look at that tweet. What's the timestamp?
2:59 p.m. It was right after the missed PAT.
So it was within an hour of the 61-yard kick.
An hour later, here comes Tyler Bass to literally, like, there's such a thing as, like, there's karma. There's things you tweet out and then karma comes back and bites you in the ass. This wasn't even a bite in the ass. This was like if I had stepped outside of my house and gotten hit by a jet engine that had fallen out of the sky like that. What's that stupid movie with
Donnie Darko?
Donnie Darko. And what I love is, like, I'm looking at Chris from Cover One, Low Buffa on Twitter. Quote tweeted that from Freezing Cold Takes, who quote tweeted it, exposed me, and it got over 700 likes, comments, generated a lot of foul DMs. I got a couple emails about people telling me to kiss pieces of their anatomy. My favorite from Chris is he goes, if anyone thinks this is going to couch Drew, you've never listened to the man. You have no idea. And he's right, because realistically, I see that kick and I see that miss and I see the vitriol I get for pointing out how unacceptable it is. And I feel like Rick from Rick and Morty, where he's just like, your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you people cheer. You can't hurt my feelings. But that's the problem. Some of you get emotional about things and you don't really put the time and effort into understanding where that vitriol really comes from. Chris, like the gentleman in the tweet that you're about to share with the people, if you could share Mr. Dominic Biondi's his offering to our... Yeah. So I get this tweet in reference to my outburst about Tyler Bass. And apparently I do no research and I don't know anything. And guys, for those of you who don't understand, this is a guy who spends his free time tweeting at politicians as if they're actually reading it. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go check his timeline. But he tweets this at me in the moment, and I take a little bit of umbrage to it because what he doesn't understand is that all of my frustration with Tyler Bass is coming from a really specific place. Because, and I love Chris, I love that he added you do no research.
Yes.
Chris, hit him with the slide. Because lo and behold, I have a chart for Tyler Bass and why I'm fed up with it. Okay? When you take a look at Tyler Bass's statistics, one of the things that jumps off the map to me, in my defense, is that he statistically is now trending towards aligning more with the kickers that came before him. The disgraced Dan Carpenter, just kind of quickly shuffled out of town Stephen Hauschka. Tyler Bass's 2023 and 2024 statistics skew more in the way of those two excused kickers than they do towards the 2022 season that got him paid. That was the reason he was extended to the contract that he was in the first place. And I think that that's worth noting, right? Like when you look at this, for those of you listening to the audio only version, you're not seeing the chart that I just put up on our YouTube video. In 2022, Tyler Bass had an 84% completion percentage from inside of 40, but he was 90% from 40 to 49. And from 50 plus, he was 66%, which 50 plus is pretty hard. He's back down to 66% last year. And to this point this year, trending worse. And then you look at the rest of the statistics and say, wait a minute, from 30 to 39 yards, you're only making 92% of your field goals. And then from 40 to 49, and this is where it becomes important. This is the crux of this. From 40 to 49 yards, this is where you need a kicker, right, Chris? But it's also why you extend a kicker. Because I feel like if you're a kicker professionally, anyone can kick a 30-yard field goal. Anyone can make one from 35. They're considered layups in basketball. 40 to 49 is considered pretty difficult, but not routine, but you should have this, especially if you're a guy on a second contract who's getting paid as much money as Tyler Bass is. In that way, he's underperforming every single one of his corollaries in that regard. Dan Carpenter had a 44% percentage. It's the only one that was worse. 2 years ago, when he signed his contract extension, Tyler Bass was 90% from this range. This year, he's 57, which is way below Stephen Hauschka's grade. And that's a problem. Now, Stephen Hauschka couldn't hit the long ball. He was 1 for 5 over 50. 20%. Okay. Dan Carpenter was 50% from 50. They decided his long ball was gone. That's why they brought in Hauschka in the first place. Now Tyler Bass is trending towards being the next Bills kicker to lose his touch inside of that 40 to 50 plus yard window. And unfortunately, it's one thing, and this is what I wish we could separate these things. I'm not mad at Tyler Bass for missing the kick. I'm mad at the fact that Tyler Bass is missing these kicks, and I take a look around at the landscape, and I say to myself, I see kickers who are available as journeymen every single offseason. Joey Sly, Austin Siebert, Chase McLaughlin. These are guys who go out there, and right now, if you go to Spotrac, you can find out that they're playing for $1 million, $900,000. They're sure as hell not costing $3.5 to $4 million against my salary cap. And so in that way, I want Tyler Bass to be better, not just because we know we need a good kicker, but also because from an opportunity cost standpoint, there are guys doing similar or better for far less. And we are very rapidly approaching the precipice of the point of his contract where we can get out of it voluntarily with very little damage. There is an out in his contract next year, this offseason, that says we can bow out and save $1 million. Do you know how insulting it is to know that the $1 million that we would save in dead money by cutting Tyler Bass this year could go to pay an Austin Siebert or a Chase McLaughlin or a Joey Sly or any one of the other guys who statistically in every single range category is better or at least even with Tyler Bass right now? So yes, I am the loser for taking to Twitter to vent my frustrations about our kicker, especially when it gets put right back up. Chris, when I bend over in Liar Liar, when he goes, "What are you going to do about it?" and he goes, "Nothing, because you won't show up to court. And even if I get a judgment against you, I won't be able to enforce it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to piss and moan and bend over and take it up the tailpipe." And the impound lot intern throws or attendant throws Jim Carrey his keys and goes, "You've been here before." I can see you've done this before. That's who I am with Tyler Bass. I'm yelling at the clouds about something that I can't change and that I'm sure he would love to change. He just can't. Hopefully this made kick of his changes his fortunes, because we need him to start earning that check. Because if not, for a team that's trying to rebuild, it just makes too much sense not to spend that type of money on a kicker whose accomplishments are highly replaceable. He's got to be better. And I hope that this kick propels him to that. I see Lauren Oubre in the comments. Lauren, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought about you this week. Not creepy. I was like, I miss Lauren. I wonder where she is. Hope she's good. Hopefully her dad's still doing good. Hopefully they come to a game this year.
Sure heard Bass was pimping a cat house and found out it had real cats.
So final thoughts before we move on with a little bit of night recap talk, and we talk about everything. It's Chris, before we unburden ourselves from everything that has been.
Yeah, we gotta go watch the election.
Before we unburden ourselves from everything that has been.
The election, that was a hell of a win. I honestly think we took the division with that game. We got Indy this week. Seems like it's a shoo-in for a win. Now, I shouldn't say that because I probably just jinxed the Bills, but it feels like we've got that all wrapped up for Sunday. So then we just separate ourselves again. Who's under us? The Jets?
Mm-hmm. Guys, Sean McDermott is 15-2 against Miami since he was hired as the Buffalo Bills head coach. Allen is 13-2 against them. And most importantly, the Buffalo Bills have swept the Miami Dolphins for the 2024 season. In doing so, we've given ourselves a 4.5 game lead in the division. And it doesn't feel fair to call it a race anymore. There's even though the Jets salvaged their odds, if you're looking at the aggregate, by beating the Houston Texans in Thursday night, it doesn't matter. But it could. I mean, Chris, the Bills have a tough stretch coming up. San Francisco.
Bye week.
Detroit. The Lions.
It's San Francisco bye week. Or no, it's Kansas City bye week, San Francisco, Detroit. That's going to be a tough stretch.
Tank Ninja, what is an Austin Siebert? Go take a look at Washington's kicking statistics.
It sounds like a Democrat. It's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat. Is that why you don't know him, Chris?
Correct.
What an idiot. Ultimately,
I look like the villain from 300.
Xerxes, that's fucking hilarious. He has neither the muscle definition nor the deep voice.
I don't know what that is.
Of course you don't, because you don't watch movies. The Bills literally capped the division in to your point, and they did it by overcoming one of the Dolphins' most competitive efforts. And I think that's the most backbreaking thing if you're a Miami fan who watched this game. Your team did everything. The Miami Dolphins did everything perfectly in this game. They played to the Bills' weaknesses and didn't deviate. They didn't get cute. They didn't call any trick plays or weird horseshit that like blew up a drive and the Bills took the lead and never gave it back. It was a seesaw affair from start to finish where the Dolphins were highly, highly, highly composed. The Bills are just better. That peanut punch, force fumble drive is the difference in the contest. It's crazy to think that, but we had the urgency to force those fumbles and fight for loose balls and to go out there and impose our will when in moments where their defense didn't. And that's the difference in the game. Like the one turnover we had was an accident near the goal line. Ours was intentional. And it just that I think that it's that composure that sets us apart from them. And so McDaniel had like everything in front of him. He was doing everything correctly, and he still can't beat Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. The ripple effect that that's going to have within their fan base, going into in their psyche as a team going into next year. I wonder if it makes Stephen Ross nervous when he goes, "You mean to tell me my quarterback literally didn't throw the one incompletion's bogus because it was a pass breakup, and the other incompletion was a throwaway kind of. You mean to tell me that my quarterback's best effort isn't enough to beat the Buffalo Bills when they have this coach and this quarterback?" What do you think it says to you if you're Stephen Ross?
I would actually take a look at the check he writes for Tua.
Yeah.
Per game.
And then he's looking at this going, I still can't beat them with all of the money that I'm paying. And this is a Bills team that doesn't have its full complement of offensive or defensive players. You got beat by a banged up Bills team that was just too much. And that's a terrifying concept for everybody in the AFC, because even hurt, our talent floor is just as high, if not higher, than a lot of teams in the NFL in a season where, Chris, you would have called us lunatics if we had said that 7-2 was possible 3 months ago.
I mean, I could have seen it coming.
The Dolphins season effectively could be over. They have a less than 1% chance for the wild card, and you just hate to see it, don't you? Let's raise a glass. To the end? Yeah, pour your Glencairn. You got whiskey over there.
Yeah.
You're Bogarting it.
I have a
fill your glass.
Knob Creek 12, because I'm a distinguished gentleman. Fill this up with I've already had like 3 glasses of it during the live stream.
I love this. See, so, Chris does get turned.
Yeah. Hold on, I got to roll it.
You got to roll it because he's a bougie asshole. We're drinking out of Glencairns and we're wearing ties. We're both assholes for this. Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Cheers. You hate to see it for the Miami Dolphins. Now, as we head out of here and close the show, a little trade deadline and election talk. Chris?
I voted.
You voted?
And you know who I voted for.
Yeah, it's that blue tie, huh? I like how you're wearing the blue tie tonight. It's very official.
Yeah.
Now,
although mistake on my part.
Oh, you know what I didn't get to hit people with? Never mind. You go.
I'm just saying this morning when I went to go vote, probably should have worn all my chains, but I didn't. I didn't. I looked like a normal human at my voting poll, which had no lines. I walked right in. They said, hello. I said, sup. And then they handed me my ballot, and
they already pre-filled it because they looked at your haircut and they were like, we know who he's voting for.
Yeah, this is like a Gavin Newsom cut, too.
Ethan Tweedy, Drew in a suit's hurting my brain. Surprised the sleeves are not cut off. Look at it, Ethan. It's terrifying. No suit can contain me, even when it's custom fit. Chris, there's a book that a friend of ours, Jake, the guy you got the Glencairn from.
Do you want the...
I want that graphic. So first put the cover. I want you to show the people. Jake brought me a book, and it's hilarious. And it's full of graphs to help you become an adult, or at least show you what being an adult is like. And
a visual learner's guide to being a grown-up.
And it's a hilarious book full of these graphs that are meant to make light or make fun of certain adult situations. I made this while sitting on the toilet at 11:45 last night and then texted it to Chris and said it has to be part of the show. This slide was originally about bowling and like how you feel about bowling, but ever since the moment I saw it, I knew that it struck me as a Dolphins fan thing. Chris, if you could show them.
Being a Dolphins fan.
Being a Dolphins fan, Chris, when you see the my favorite might be the curve, right? Like the
yellow curve or the purple curve.
Well, my favorite is the, hey, we're great. This is our year. I'm never doing this again. Oh, the captions are perfect. Guys, if you really dissect that graph, if anybody wants it for their own, for posterity, just reach out to me. Right? At Rockpile Report on Twitter. I'd be happy to share it with you. In fact, Chris, I might tweet it out after the show. After another Glencairn of whiskey as we go back to watch the election results for all that matters.
Yeah, while we watch the election in our suits, and by suits, I just mean we have the top half on. I have on jeans.
Of course we do, because we're idiots. We're not hacks. We wouldn't actually put a full suit on for this nonsense. It's a podcast, right? I'm not here for a job interview. Suit bottoms for this nonsense. Absolutely not. Did you guys take Hugo and do the most American thing and get him to vote? Hilarious thing. He's been sitting in studio this entire time. Hugo, lean in camera. Let everybody see you. Guys, break down the fourth wall. Hugo's been sitting here hanging out with us the entire time.
Yeah, I said I'm too legal for Democrats and too pro-Ukrainian for Republicans, so I couldn't vote.
He even made a joke. He goes, I went to a polling place and tried to vote. He goes, my accent got me through the door, but my passport, they wouldn't accept it. Guys, this is hilarious. No matter how, here's what I'll close with. No matter how the election goes, the only blue and red, and for those of you who have ever had like 5 or more beers with me at a tailgate, they know this already. Politically, the only blue and red I care about is the one that comes with some white around it in the shape of a charging buffalo. Got to have a nameplate in the back of the jersey. Otherwise, I don't give a damn. That's how I feel. I'm ready to just sit back and watch this all play out. Guys, I'm happy that so many of you, like watching the viewer count as I'm kind of doing this, it's been fun to see how many of you are willing to put election coverage aside and just come talk about something that actually gives you joy. If I want to be real for a second, can we all just focus on that? Like, I think that one of the things with identity politics that pisses me off the most, and I think it has ruined this entire process, is that we all believe we're on a team. And yet, as far back as Malcolm X, Malcolm X had some ideas where he was talking about things like political, and he called it a game of political football, which is why I think it's relevant to the conversation here at hand. He goes, it's a tug of war between two groups of people, and now what he again had some ideas about how minorities fit into that picture. But now what you have is oh, good. And Chris, on cue, we have buffering issues. Tampering. They're tampering with my live stream on election night. I want a full scale investigation. What I want to say is identity politics has ruined this entire process. I think that for all the doom scrolling and all the social media activism that people feel like is necessary, one of the funniest exercises you could ever do is go outside and talk to your neighbor.
Apparently, Trump took Ohio, and the deciding vote was Greg Thompson.
Don't say that. Allegedly. I don't want to get sued. Now, I think that realistically, we live in this vacuum society of social media where people feel like they can just go online, say whatever they feel like, and there's no consequences. What I'd like to point out is that why is this camera turning?
I don't know.
Hugo, are you on the cord? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm right here. Here's what I know.
Why don't we go to your close-up?
Go to my close-up. Give me my single. What I know is that at this point as a country, more divisiveness is not going to help anything. We live in a time and place where people can use social media to say anything that they want. And most people use it to say some of the most hateful shit I've ever heard. And I don't understand that. Like even our friend Dominic Biondi, who I highlighted earlier tonight, you can come at me with all the vitriol in the world. I don't dislike you.
He's soft as puppy shit.
I dislike your opinion, especially your opinion about my opinion, but I don't dislike you. In the same way, Chris can stand up at his wedding and say highly political things during his wedding vows that run counter to everything his wife believes, and she can laugh at it knowing that that's just his way of dealing with stress and that it's a joke between the two of them. And she can forgive him and not, I don't know, make him a monster in her own mind because he doesn't agree with everything she does politically. The faster that we can get back to this as a society, the better this is all going to get. And the faster that this perceived sickness that we have as a society, it's going to heal. But we have to heal. We have to stop being the biggest thing that stands between each other. And what that means is being willing to take things, right? Like taking politics out of who you are as a person. You can have ideas, you can have beliefs. And if someone attacks them, stop feeling like they're attacking you as a person. When Mr. Biondi sent that to me, do you know what I responded with? It was the gift from Tombstone where the guy's like, well, bye. Because realistically, there's nothing I'm going to say to you that's going to change your mind. You're a guy who spends all day yelling at politicians on social media who aren't paying attention to you either. But I don't blame you for that either. That's how you feel like expressing yourself. Just know that I'm a person. I'm not some nameless, faceless politician using an intern to run a social media account. I'm a dude. And I bet you that if you came to a tailgate and sat down and had a couple beers with me, like so many people did this past week, you'd find out that we're not that different. And we actually have a pretty good time. And so in that way, I just want more people to grab onto that concept, because no matter who wins or loses, this is going to be volatile. I think we all need to divorce ourselves from the idea that our politics are us. And if we can do that, there might just be some hope out there. That's all. Guys, that's the end of my PSA. I wish I had one of those shooting stars, the more you know, but I don't. All I have is a suit and a can of beer.
Suit top.
And a microphone. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. I'll see you on the other side of this thing. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. That's Hugo Carmona. And this has been your Rockpile Report.